Chris Chapman here, President of the IIC, and my welcome to all annual conference participants as I'm joined this morning by Michel van Bellingen. Michel is a very busy man. He's the current chairperson of BEREC, which as we all know is the body of European regulators for electronic communication, while his day job is chairman of the Council for the Belgium Institute for Postal Services and Telecommunications, BIPT, or BIPT as we've come to fondly refer to it, as Michel and BIPT have been highly engaged, supportive friends of the IIC, which I wanted to acknowledge right off the bat, as has BEREC itself. So a good morning to you, Michel. And as you know, the big theme this morning is addressing the digital divide. And I know that you're going to be outlining some new work and insights that BEREC's ready to announce on this theme of closing the digital divide, insights from BEREC. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. And first of all, many thanks to IIC for giving BEREC the opportunity to express some thoughts on the way forward to closing the digital divide. And it's a great pleasure for me to share with you some preliminary information about the study on post-COVID measures to close the digital divide carried out by IIC for BEREC. Nowadays, digital services are part of our daily life, but some people are still left behind and are unable to benefit from numerous advantages of the digitalization of our society, which makes men more vulnerable and more likely to suffer from social exclusion. I consider this as unacceptable, since I believe that a truly digital society should include all citizens. We all know that this problem is not a new one for regulators and policymakers. Digital inequalities have existed for a long time, and closing the digital divide has become, over the years, one of the long-term goals in the electronic communications sector. The COVID pandemic has changed all this and has put this issue back on the high priority list on the short term. Indeed, during the COVID-19 pandemic, digital divides have increased, widening pre-existing inequalities and causing social exclusion. Closing the digital gap has therefore become one of the top political priorities in Europe. As an organization gathering European telecommunications regulator, BEREC is dedicated to promoting full connectivity and empowering end users. The BEREC strategy 2021-2025 states that everyone must have the ability and capacity to participate in the digital society by ensuring that all consumers have access at an affordable price to a broadband internet service. Contributing to bridging the digital divide is therefore very important to BEREC. It is in this context that BEREC commissioned IIC to carry out a study in order to help NRAs in adopting the right measures destined to improve digital inclusion for all citizens by thoroughly analyzing the experience gained during the COVID-19 crisis. The objective of the study are, first, to analyze the real impact of digital divide in the European economy and society before, during, and after COVID-19 pandemic. Two, to identify effective initiatives developed across Europe to tackle the digital divide. And three, to propose recommendations to NRAs to bridge the digital divide. The methodology used to conduct the study consists in analyzing various sources, such as expert literature, the quantitative and statistical data available, interviews with key experts, and case studies conducted in several countries. Among its main findings, the study shows that the digital divide is a multifaceted phenomenon with multiple causes and adverse effects on society. For instance, digital divide cannot be considered univocal, since three levels of digital divide can be identified. First level, lack of access to internet and digital services. Second level, lack of digital skills. Third level, differences in the outcomes obtained from the use of internet and digital services. All those levels should therefore be borne in mind when tackling digital divide problematic, which makes it even more complex. Furthermore, regarding the impact of COVID-19, a study shows that the pandemic has had a major impact on digital divide, playing a dual role. On the positive side, it has accelerated processes of digitization in many areas that would otherwise have taken years. It has also contributed to raise both public and political awareness of this issue. On the negative side, the pandemic has brought into the spotlight the pre-existing causes of digital divide. Amongst which we can mention the lack of access to high-capacity broadband, lack of affordability, or the lack of digital skills. It has also accentuated the negative consequences of the digital divide, such as difficulty of accessing key services in the fields of education and health, increased financial exclusion, or difficulty of interacting online with public administration. But this study was not meant to be a purely theoretical exercise. It was indeed elaborated with a clear goal, which is answering the following question. What can NRAs do in order to effectively promote digital inclusion in practice in the short and medium terms? This is why Iclavet ISADE used its main findings in order to propose a list of recommendations that regulators can apply to reduce the digital divide. These recommendations are divided into two categories. First of all, those directly oriented towards NRAs. Secondly, the consultant proposed a set of recommendations implying cooperation between NRAs and other actors of the digital sectors, public bodies, service providers, civil society organizations, and so on. Another key concept to bridge the digital gap is coordination. This approach, which is based on cooperation and coordination, is quite important to me, since BEREC is a European body that stands for a consistent European approach of regulation, considering national circumstances if relevant. The recommendations aim to propose solutions to major problems underlying the digital divide: lack of infrastructure, affordability problems, lack of digital skills, lack of motivation to use the internet, and so on. As a final conclusion, despite the complexity of the phenomenon of the digital divide and the limited competencies that NRAs have in this area, the study underlines their role in making progress towards bridging the digital divide. Their independence makes them in an excellent position to foster and encourage cooperation between all the parties involved. So many of the recommendations in the study are oriented in that direction. This being said, I invite you to read more about the details of the main findings and the recommendations in the study itself, which will be published later this week. And of course, Chris, all questions are welcome. Over to you, Chris.
Michel, that's a very handsome encapsulation of the phenomena of the digital divide, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I might just add that BEREC itself has become a powerhouse of coordination and cooperation, and it stands as a beacon in that regard. And I love the work that BEREC is doing. I'm just wondering whether we could tease out of you, if we could, a few more details on the specific initiatives that are being developed across Europe at the moment to tackle this insidious digital divide.
Yes, Chris, no problem. The consultant studied the cases of 5 European countries: Czech Republic, Hungary, Netherlands, Spain, and Sweden, and analyzed the initiatives of various stakeholders, such as NRAs, operators, public administrations, associations, and so on. In summary, the following measures were taken in these 5 countries to address digital divide during the pandemic: monitoring the network's performance and the quality of service, providing information on prices and offers, as well as official price competition tools to enhance competition, increasing transparency in order to enhance trust, organizing campaigns to increase digital skills, particularly among the elderly, organizing campaigns to provide students with appropriate digital equipment, strengthening cooperation with stakeholders, local and other national authorities, NGOs, telecom operators, and so on, limiting the ability of operators to cut off the provision of service to vulnerable persons. So this is an overview. Yes, back to you.
I'm trying to tease this out of you. I look forward to reading the report, actually, because it sounds as if it's very comprehensive and thoughtful and progressive. But I'm just wondering whether you might give us some more of the concrete recommendations made by your consultants in that regard to bridge that digital divide.
Yeah, sure, Chris. As already explained, the study shows that the problematic of digital divide is quite complex and has several levels. Recommendations made by the consultant take this complexity into account and are therefore linked to the various aspects of digital divide. Therefore, the consultant provided recommendations in the following fields. First of all, fostering infrastructure sharing to reduce costs of deploying broadband networks in depopulated and remote areas. For instance, good practices would be to foster dialogue between NRAs and international organizations to promote open RAN architectures to accelerate network deployment in remote areas, to foster collaboration among stakeholders in order to identify bottlenecks in network deployment, and also to establish mobile coverage obligations for telco operators to address underserved areas. Secondly, the consultant proposed to tackle the affordability aspect by supporting the creation and use of comparison tools, public tools of telecom services to allow end users to make informed decisions, and maintain competitive pressures on providers. And among this recommendation in the field of affordability, I can also mention the need to raise awareness about social tariffs and other facilities for vulnerable groups. Another recommendation is linked to improve take-up of telecom services and digital skills. For instance, this could be achieved by conducting systematic research into the motivations of those who do not access the internet or choose not to engage in the digital world, in order to better understand why they prefer to remain offline. Also, the consultant proposes to take measures to improve accessibility of digital services. Regarding this matter, the consultant recommends to include specific programs to address digital inclusion for persons with disabilities in universal service obligations, and mandate NRAs to monitor the accessibility of services. But there are some of the recommendations that are proposed for direct actions for NRAs. But the study also lists some recommendations which imply close cooperation between the NRAs and other actors. For instance, the creation of a permanent European forum to make progress in bridging the digital divide could be envisaged. I can also mention, regarding the affordability level of the digital divide, the recommendation aiming to define public aid programs for acquiring digital equipment and accessing telecom services for people with financial difficulties. With that, Chris, I think I gave you an overview of this concrete measure. Back to you.
Well, look, that's a wonderful contribution to kick off this agenda this morning. Thank you for doing that. I can only reiterate that I'm personally very impressed with the work that BEREC's doing, bringing together all those NRAs, contestability of ideas, coordination, cooperation. It's got great momentum to it. Congratulations on that, and it's lovely to see you again. So thank you for that this morning.
Thank you very much, Chris.